Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be talking about Love Island USA Season 8, Episode 27. So we start off this episode with Anaya talking about her conversation with Casey to Trinity and Melanie. So Anaya says that the conversation went well and it was the most genuine that he has sounded. She says that he owned up to everything, and that's really what she wanted. Like she's been saying since he came back from Casa, that she's just looking for accountability and for him to own up to his mistakes and wrongdoings. She also talks about her connection with Carl in this conversation, and she says that it's been going really well and that they have good chemistry and that she's really happy. Then in the same conversation, Melanie talks about her connection with Sincere, and she says that she doesn't really know what to do, if she should continue like trying to explore that connection or if she should just let it go because Sincere has disrespected her so many times. Trinity and Anaya both say that she should give him a chance because they believe that he's genuine. Again, like I said about the last episode, I don't really understand why the girls continue to push Melanie towards Sincere and act like it's not a toxic relationship. I feel like they should be trying to tell her that she deserves better and not that she should continue to be with him even though he's disrespected her so many times. Also, in this episode, Jada and Caleb have their first real conflict. I talked about this in my last video about how Caleb was worried about if Jaden actually liked him or not, and about how in a previous episode, Jaden said that she wasn't really feeling Caleb as much as she was in Casa. So, in this episode, Caleb is talking to Trinity and Bryce about his connection with Jaden. And he says that since they've gotten in the villa, Jaden hasn't really talked to him. He feels like he initiates most conversations and he compliments her, and she doesn't really compliment her or compliment him. And he also feels like she's not very affectionate towards him. So he feels like he's putting more effort into that couple than she is. um he is having this conversation right next to Jaden. So Jaden is in earshot. She's talking with Parmita and Corbin, I think. But Jaden overhears it, so she's mad and she goes up to Caleb and she's like, let's have this conversation. Like, we should be having this conversation, not you and another couple. So she pulls him away for a chat and then they talk. In that conversation, Jaden expresses her frustration with the fact that Caleb was having a conversation about their connection with other people instead of just coming to her and telling her how he's feeling so that they could actually solve the problem. I don't think it's like wrong to talk to other people about your connection. I think it happens in Love Island all the time. But to do it right next to the person that you're in a couple with is kind of weird. And if you were really feeling this way, like he's had this conversation before, he should have just went to her after having the conversation the first time so that they could actually have a productive conversation and talk through it instead of him basically jumping to conclusions about how Jaden is feeling about or Jaden is feeling in regards to him. They are both yelling at each other and just mad, so it turns into an argument. Caleb says that he feels like Jaden isn't even into him and it's just surface level with her. Jaden says that she wants to know Caleb more, but all Caleb wants to talk about is their connection, and he doesn't want to talk about how his life is outside or, really give her anything to get to know him at all. After this conversation, Caleb talks to the guys about it, and he says that he doesn't share anything about his life until he knows that the connection might go somewhere, and he doesn't feel like it's going to go somewhere since she's not being affectionate. To be honest, that doesn't really make any sense to me because I feel like conversation should come before showing affection. Like, why would you show affection to someone who you don't really know? I also do think that they're just not very compatible. Like maybe their love languages are different or something. But even in Casa, like they were kind of forced together. Like Caleb was talking to Parmita first, and then Corbin started talking to Parmita. So he just started talking to Jaden to form a connection in Casa. In terms of the Sincere Melanie situation, there wasn't that much on them this episode, but Melanie does sleep in the same bed as him this episode, instead of sleeping in soul ties. So that is, a step. But she does put a pillow in between them, so good for her. Because I feel like she shouldn't forgive him that easily. Okay, in the morning, Sincere does a breakfast date for Melanie, and I do think that this is a step towards something because he hasn't really done anything for her. I feel like she's just had like these arguments with him about him not treating her well, and he doesn't really make up for it. But he actually does do something positive for once, so it shows he's putting effort in. Sincere did spend this whole season up until now being dishonest. So I guess we'll see how Melanie takes this, if this is like enough for her to forgive him. But I don't think it will be. She does say that she needs more days like this, but it's a step in the right direction, basically. Then Jaden and Caleb talk in the morning about their last conversation. Both of them apologize for from the night before because their argument became too heated. And Jaden says that she thinks it was just miscommunication and they need to learn how to solve that. So they did make up pretty fast. I do think that they both want their connection to work out and they're like putting effort into making it work out. But I also do think, like I said before, their communication styles are just very different. Caleb is wanting affection as a way to grow their connection, and Jaden is wanting to talk more and have conversations, and she sees that as the best way to grow their connection. So I feel like unless they actually like bring that up with each other and recognize that, their connection just isn't going to work out. Then Gal and Dylan talk, and Gal says that Moore is cool and he wants to talk to her, but he doesn't know if she feels the same way. Spoiler alert, she doesn't. Amore said in the dressing room that she doesn't want to force a connection, so we'll see how that goes. Then they get a text and they tell the villa that there's going to be a recoupling where the guys choose. Jen is pretty upset because she feels like she basically brought Gaul into the villa and he could be the person to take her out. Honestly, to me, I knew how this situation was going to go when she brought Gaul into the villa. He already wanted to talk to Kinsey during Casa. So, I felt like she should have brought in the other Casa guy, anyways. Okay, before the recoupling, Gaul and Amora talk, and Amora tells Gaul that Jin basically dogs him in the dressing room. And yeah, again, Amora said that she didn't want to force a connection, but here she is trash talking Jin, or not trash talking her, but basically backstabbing Jin so that she can get Gaul to keep her in the villa. Gaul does tell the guys that he doesn't know if she only said that because she wants to be picked. So, though I don't like Gaul, I'm glad that he recognized that because I would rather Jin stay in the villa than Amora. Okay, then the recoupling happens, and I honestly feel like this recoupling was really short. The speeches were really short, and yeah, it just went by really fast. I get why, because they also did dump for other people, two couples, so it makes sense. So I don't really have much to say about the speeches, but I will talk about some of them. So Bryce goes first, and he couples up with Trinity. It was very cute, but it was, expected because they are exclusive, they're boyfriend and girlfriend, so makes sense. Then Zach couples up with Kata, again, expected. But he does say, I love you in his speech. And I don't know if that was purposeful or not because he's joked about saying I love you before. But like there was like a kind of like space between when he said it. So I'm not sure. I guess we'll see in the next episode. Then Corbin couples up with Parmita, Dylan couples up with Kinsey, then Carl couples up with Anaya, and his speech was so good. I wrote down quotes because I was like, those are good. But he said, she is very beautiful. She has a good head on her shoulders. She makes him feel at home. And revenge may be sweet, but this girl is sweeter. Like that one was good. But I'm rooting for them so bad. Then Casey couples up with TT. Um, yeah, his speech was kind of bad. Like he brought up the fact that she defended him when they walked into the villa, and yeah, they're coupled up. So that's all I have to say. Then Sincere couples up with Melanie, and he says in his speech that she puts him first before himself, and she makes him feel at home. Okay. He didn't really have an option, but I want Sincere to go home. I feel like Melanie does deserve better. I don't want Melanie to go home, but it might have to happen if Sincere is still there. Cause I don't want Sincere in that villa. Then Caleb couples up with Jaden, and his speech was honestly so dry, but it makes sense because they're not really like a couple. Like he said, they haven't talked since Casa, so it makes sense. Then Gaul couples up with Amora, and in his speech, he says that he admires that she's down to earth and true to herself. I don't really know how she's true to herself because she did force a connection with Gaul to stay in the villa, but to each their own. She did outwardly say that she doesn't like him after talking to him the first time, and I'm pretty sure in the dressing room. So, again, I don't understand if she doesn't want to force a connection to stay in the villa, why she would pursue Gaul even after saying that she didn't like him. Then Jen is dumped from the villa, and I was really hoping that Gaul and Amora would be voted out after this. Um, I feel like I've grown to like Jen. I think that when she was first in the villa, when she first came to the villa, I didn't really have much of an opinion on her. I didn't talk about her much. To me, she was more of like a background character because she came in with Caleb and Sol, and they obviously had much more going on in the villa. But I feel like I've grown to like her. Like, she's really fun, and I would have much rather had Amora gone home. I just think that Amora didn't even really need to be in the villa. Like, she only needed to be in the villa to mess with Melanie and Sincere's connection, but she didn't really do that. So, there's not much of a need for her to be in the villa. Sorry. Okay, then Ariana reveals that two couples are going to be dumped from the villa. She says that each couple has to choose two couples that they find the most incompatible and vote for them to be dumped. So Anaya and Carl go first, and they vote Amora and Gaul because they feel they're more of a friendship couple. And then Jade and Caleb because they have a lot of bumps in the road, even though they're new. So they feel like it should have been more honeymoon stage. That's fair. Then Trinity and Bryce go, and they vote Gaul and Amora because they are a couple due to circumstances. Then they vote Jade and Caleb because they have a connection, but it feels more one sided. Jade and Caleb vote Amora and Gaul, and then Kinsey and Dylan. For Kinsey and Dylan, they say that they just don't know if they can trust Kinsey to be actually committed because of her past. I think that was fair. Kinsey was irritated, but I think it was fair because she's been exploring this whole time. So, I mean, I think she should have expected at least one vote. Then Kenzie and Dilla go Morton Gall and Parmita and Corbin. For Parmita and Corbin, they say that they feel their relationship is based off of lust, which I agree. And Corbin responds and he says that Kinsey didn't really give any reasons, but she did. She said that the relationship was based off lust. And he says that he feels that the vote was out of spite. Then Parmita and Corbin go and they vote Moringal and Sincere and Melanie. For Sincere and Melanie, Corbin gives a speech for or the reason why, and he says that he felt backstabbed by seeing how much Sincere has lied in the villa. And I honestly respect that from Corbin so much because I was expecting the main villa people, like the OGs, or Sincere is, or Corbin isn't an OG, but he is pretty much an OG at this point. So I was expecting them to not vote for each other, but I do feel like Sincere and Melanie deserved at least one vote. Parmita says that she feels like their couple is toxic and Melanie deserves it better. And again, like, I'm really glad Parmita said that because I do feel like the girls are not telling her the truth. And, they should tell Melanie that it's a toxic couple and that it's not good. But both Sincere and Melanie say that it's fair and that they respect, like, their reasoning.
I'm not saying they're not compatible, but I am saying that in this villa, he's explored and lied. I cherish respect from the people I trust, and that's been broken in here after movie night for sure.
Then Amor and Gal go and they vote Caleb and Jaden and Sincere and Melanie. Then Melanie and Sincere go and they vote Amora and Gal and Kinsey and Dylan. For Kinsey and Dylan, they say that they feel like Kinsey isn't done exploring, and they say that she would have kept exploring if everyone didn't criticize her after movie night. I wasn't expecting them to vote for Kinsey and Dylan, but I was happy. I will say that. Kinsey responds though, and she says that she is hurt because she didn't expect it from Melanie. She says that she thinks of Melanie as a friend and she would have never considered dumping Melanie. But I feel like the question was who is incompatible, and it's not about friendship. So their reasoning is fair. I also think that if Kinsey thinks as of Melanie as a friend, then she should be telling her that her couple with Sincere is toxic. And it would have been fair if Kinsey and Dylan voted for Sincere and Melanie as most incompatible. Then Casey and TT go and they vote Moringal and Dylan and Kinsey. Then Kata and Zach go and they're essentially breaking the tie between Dylan and Kinsey and Caleb and Jaden. But Kata and Zach vote Moringal and Jaden and Caleb. I figured they would have voted Jaden and Caleb because when Melanie voted for Kenzie and Dylan, Kato was shocked, and she said that if she was in Kenzie's shoes, she would have been mad. So I figured that she wasn't going to vote for one of her friends. Okay, so the dumped couples were Amora and Gaul, which every couple voted for them, and then Jade and Caleb. That's fair, like they're pretty incompatible. I do feel like it would have been better entertainment if Kenzie and Dylan were gone. I feel like that would have been better. Okay, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you for watching, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for my other videos.